Before I get into this video, I want to let the people who haven't seen the 9 other videos of this challenge know what the rules were when I decided to start this challenge. So the first and most important rule that I made for myself was I was only doing maps that took 12 hours or less. And this is because I wanted to make sure I got every map done before the release of Black Ops 6, as I didn't want to continue the challenge after Black Ops 6. And so when you think about maps like Town, Nuketown, or Call of the Dead, those maps take a ridiculous amount of time on their own, not even mentioning any of the restarts you'd have to do and some of the deaths you'd take later on. And it just wasn't very feasible for me to do this before the release of Black Ops 6. There was one map only that I exempt from this rule, and that was Black Ops 3 Nacht. On top of this, I wouldn't be doing any objective-based maps, and this was just to build up more hype, I guess, for the return of round-based in Black Ops 6. And finally, I also didn't do any Dead Ops Arcade, as I consider it its own game mode separate to the traditional style of zombies that we get. So with all the info out of the way, let's jump right into the video. Now I know what most of you guys are thinking, but if I'm being brutally honest, this game's round-based was not that bad. And if you enjoyed going for high rounds on Cold War, there should have been no reason why you didn't like Vanguard for high rounds at all. You should have really enjoyed this game. Because this game for high rounds essentially plays the same as Cold War. Only it has one map that actually feels like zombies, because it's actually a zombies map. And also it has quite a variety of ways to play, because of the Covenant system. But going into Vanguard and starting off with Shi no Numa, I would load in with the Einhorn revolving shotgun and Ring of Fire. Then for the first 5 rounds or so, I'd stick in the first room, and then I would leave after this and go over to just outside of the fishing hut area, and this is pretty much where I'd be playing for the majority of the game. And after I'd gathered a decent amount of points, I'd then go ahead and upgrade my Einhorn revolving by going over to the pack punch area, which they connected to the comms room and the storage area. I pretty much focused on upgrading my shotgun before I got any perks really. So after I'd gotten all of my upgrades for my weapon, what I would do is I would then go around the map looking for the perks. Now obviously I was keeping Fishing Hut closed, so I couldn't really go in there in order to get my final perk, but I could get 4 other perks. And Juggernog always spawns just outside of the upstairs spawn area, and so after you go outside, you can just get Jug right then and there. Now, the way the perk system works in this game isn't like anything you've ever seen, and the way it works is you have to upgrade it through the tiers. So I think tier 1 is either free or costs 500 points. I'm not actually sure which one it is. Yeah, I just looked it up. So tier 1 is free. Tier 2 is 2500, Tier 3 is 5000, and Tier 4 is 7500. So in order to max out your perks, it will cost 15,000 per perk. And since I was going for just 4 perks in this game, it was going to cost me a total of 60,000 points to max out all of my perks. Now, I actually think this was a really good idea. I like the fact that they gave you kind of more to do and something else to grind for during each match, just so that you don't immediately get set up. I know a lot of people don't like it, but in my personal opinion, it wasn't too bad. But now I was almost fully set up, but the last thing I was missing were the correct covenants. Now, covenants you can think of as like extra kind of perks, and some of them are taken from like the double pack-a-punch, for example, like having a turn zombie or cryo freeze or something. And others is like just having extra damage for different things. It's kind of in order to try and create a sort of roguelike experience, which I thought was a really good idea. This was basically my favorite feature of Vanguard, and I think it would have been great to see a return, and we kind of are with Black Ops 6, with the perks Because the perk system in Black Ops 6 is gonna be, you choose like one extra upgrade for the major and minor augment for it, which is a little bit similar to the way Covenants are. Because you're forced to choose them, it's just the augments aren't completely random, and that's one of the things that is a bit of a pain in the ass. Because let's say you're looking for a specific Covenant on Vanguard zombies, you're basically going to have to go through a bunch of rounds in order to try and find that specific Covenant, because they might change into Covenants you're not interested in, and you can only change Covenants once per round. They only change when the round changes. But for this strategy from the beginning, I was going for 3 specific Covenants. The first one was Unholy Ground, and now what Unholy Ground does is, if you stand still, your damage output will be multiplied by like 1.5 times or something. It's really overpowered for just camping and standing still. The second Covenant I was going for is called Critical Expertise, and what this allows me to do is, if I was shooting the zombie in the body, for example, what would happen is some of that damage would actually instead go towards the head of the zombie, allowing for a critical kill instead of just a regular zombie kill. And this was very useful for the third Covenant that I had, which synergized very well, which is called Death Blow. And what Death Blow does is, when you have it as a legendary Covenant, is that every bullet you shoot out of your mag will return 2 bullets to that mag. So this meant, as long as I was getting enough critical kills, I would constantly get ammo back in my mag, and I would never have to reload or grab ammo back for my shotgun. And this was fine and all, but by like the mid to late 40s, I was starting to get overrun a little bit, and I had actually been fortunate enough to pick up a ray gun. And so mid-game, I'd actually decided to switch my strategy up a little bit and use the ray gun instead of the shotgun. And this meant I'd want a switch up in my Covenants, as, you know, Critical Expertise and Death Blow weren't really gonna work on a ray gun when pretty much all I'm doing is shooting at the ground. And so what I was looking for now is, in place of those 2 Covenants, was Deadly Accurate and Ammo Gremlin. Deadly Accurate is basically, the more you hit enemies in succession, the more damage your weapon does. So instead of my ray gun doing like 7,000 to 8,000 damage, it was now doing 11,000 to 12,000, and able to one-hit kill zombies pretty much for the rest of the game. And Ammo Gremlin basically meant I never had to reload my ray gun ever again, because what it does is gradually refills your mag from your stock. So let's say I had shot like 20 bullets before I got my Ring of Fire back. It would have already been to like 25 to 30 bullets back already, and then with the Ring of Fire, I'd basically be getting all the ammo back in my ray gun before the Ring of Fire ended. Something quite important to note about the Covenant system is you have to get these heart things in order to actually be able to get any Covenants. And I think you only get one of these hearts like once every 3 or 4 rounds. So you really kind of need to stockpile them if you want to be able to change multiple Covenants at any one time. Alongside this, you'll notice that my Ring of Fire has a kind of tier next to it. And this is because at the beginning of each match, it actually starts at tier 1. And so you have to use these sacrificial hearts in order to upgrade your ability, whether it be the Ring of Fire or Ether Shroud or whatever. You have to upgrade that each individual game you play. And this was quite an interesting change. I don't think this was particularly necessary, but it's pretty cool nonetheless. But yeah, after shooting the ray gun down on the ground for about 2 hours, I did manage to get to round 100 again in just over 2 hours, I believe it was. Something that is worth mentioning though is how horrific the pause system is in this game, and this is probably the thing that pissed people off the most and is one of the reasons people don't fucking play this game. Because this wasn't my first game I'd played, this was my second. And it was very unfortunate because I'd just gone for my food break. I was only gone for like 20 to 30 minutes. And after I unpaused the game, I got disconnected straight back to the main menu. And one of my friends actually pointed out that this is what would happen in like Black Ops 4 co-ops because the pausing just wasn't right. Like, it just didn't really work. So thanks, Vanguard, for making me waste an hour of my life. Anyway, from that point on, I'd learned my mistake, and like I said, I got to round 100 in just over 2 hours on this map, and it was time for the final map in this round 100 challenge I'd set for myself, which is the Archon. So, on one hand, I felt like I was doing this challenge a disservice by ending it on such a kind of dreadful map, but on the other hand, the map actually didn't play that badly. But god damn, ending it on this map is just kind of sucks. But hey, that's what I get for doing the challenge in pretty much chronological order. So let me just give a bit of backstory to this map for those of you who don't really know the life cycle of Vanguard, which I'd imagine a lot of you don't. So back in something like February or March or something, they released an objective-based map called Terra Maledicta. Now, in my opinion, I think that Vanguard actually did better than Cold War for the objective-based modes, because on Outbreak I felt like I was just running around the entire map the whole time, not really doing anything. But on Vanguard I got to go straight into the next objective, which I thought was pretty nice. And this map for objective-based, it was okay, it wasn't anything special, but you know, it is what it is. And then a few months later, what do they decide to do? They decide to basically remaster Terra Maledicta and call it the Archon, and basically turn Terra Maledicta into a round-based map. That is all they did for their final DLC, and it is such a fucking piss take, man. Because I remember at the time, one of my friends, Nanikos, actually ended up leaking the Archon and said that it was basically Terra Maledicta with a green tint, and people were like getting pissed off at him, saying that's not a leak or anything, but it was literally Terra Maledicta with a green tint. So anyway, I'd be starting off this map with the grenade launcher. I forget what it's called. I think when it's pack-a-punched it becomes the imploder. But yeah, I'd be starting off with the nade launcher. And similarly to Ancient Evil, I would be playing this map in the spawn room. So until about round 10, I'd be staying in the spawn room. And then after this point, I would be running around the map in order to upgrade my Ring of Fire to tier 5. This was so I could go over to Pack-a-Punch and Pack-a-Punch easily, except for the fact that I'd forgotten to actually use my Sacrificial Hearts. And it took the piss to get Pack-a-Punch over and done with, because I've forgotten to, you know, get my Ring of Fire to tier 5. But eventually I got Pack-a-Punch unlocked and I managed to upgrade my launcher into the Imploder. Now at this point I'd just be chilling in the spawn room until I had enough points in order to run around the map and get every single perk to tier 4. And so when you're in this spawn room, there are only 3 locations the zombies can spawn from, as long as you keep the barrier on the right closed. You can open the barrier on the left, it's no problem. But if you stand back here, they'll spawn from the barrier right in front of you, just slightly off to the right. And then they'll spawn on 2 spawns further back, one directly behind the window spawn and one just slightly to the left of that one. And now the cool thing again about the Covenant system is at this point I would be switching them up again in order to synergize with the build I was going for with the grenade launcher. So the first one I would be really wanting and needing is Explosives Expert. And this increases the damage that's done by my explosives by 100% and reduces any damage I do to myself with grenade launchers and just explosives in general by 100%, basically meaning I've got PhD. Alongside this, I would be adding Splatterfest. Now, I don't know if that actually made any difference whatsoever, but I believe it's meant to make your explosions bigger when a zombie explodes. And finally, I would be using Motherlode as my final covenant. And Motherlode is basically like a gambling covenant in which when you use equipment, they have a chance to not actually be used and you get to keep that equipment. So in my case, I would be using decoy grenades and thermites. And so every time I threw down a decoy grenade or threw a thermite, they had a chance to not actually be used. But anyway, by about round 35, I think I was finally set up with a triple packed imploder and all 5 perks. But if I'm being honest, the Deadshot or equivalent of Deadshot perk didn't really help out because I was using a grenade launcher, so I didn't really care about that much. However, I will say there are 4 perks in this game. There's Juggernog, Quick Revive, Stamina Up, and Speed Collar, and each time you level it up, it will have a significant increase in its ability. So, for example, you take Juggernog, you get 50 health, 50 extra health per Juggernog tier you get. So normally you'd start off at 100 health, but with tier 4 Juggernog, you'll have 300. But let me quickly go over why I wanted thermites and Motherlode, because this strategy is actually kind of fun. Because I just want you to have a look at my round 96 real quick, and just look at how long this round lasted. So zombies started spawning in at about 2 hours, 2 minutes and about 50 seconds or so on the grey timer underneath my green timer. And the round ended at 2 hours, 3 minutes and 32 seconds. That pretty much means that zombies started and stopped spawning within about 40 seconds of the round. This is because on insta-kills, what you're able to do is throw a thermite grenade at the 2 spawns that are in front of you and make your way just to the left-hand side of the spawn that's at the very front. This is because you want to activate your Ring of Fire, as the Ring of Fire is able to immediately kill any of the zombies that stand in it on insta-kill. And so because of this, you're basically instantly killing all 3 of the spawns on insta-kill, which is absolutely crazy. And then when I have the Ring of Fire just naturally, you'll see I'm just using it between the 3 spawns, and it's actually quite a fast and honestly relatively fun strategy. And so after about 2 hours and 10 minutes of using this grenade launcher, I was done with round 100 on the Archon. There it is! Let's fucking go! And finally, after 420 hours, 50 minutes, and 53 seconds of gameplay across games from World at War all the way through to Vanguard, I had managed to achieve round 100 on every round-based Call of Duty Zombies map that took 12 hours or less. And I had managed to do all of this in way less time than I thought it would take me, because I estimated about 4 months, but I managed to do it in 2.5 months. And if you remember at the beginning, I estimated it would take me about 720 hours, including every fail along the way and every completion, but it only took me 420 hours. I basically shaved off 300 hours that I thought it might have taken me, which meant I played a lot better than I thought I would have. And so you'll be able to see in my spreadsheet on the right hand side, I had all the maps and the days I think it would have taken me, and then next to it I had the days it did take me, and also the amount of tries past round 50 on each of the map. And I'll just go over these right now. So the amount of days I thought it would take me, and this was estimating it was 8-hour long days, is about 90 days. But it only took me about 55 8-hour days. And the amount of tries past 50, I actually managed to first try 44 out of the 58 maps, which means only 14 of these games I actually failed to do first try. And one of those is because my game crashed. But yeah, for sure, the most difficult map that I had just for myself, and it's a map I'd never gotten to round 100 on, was World at War Derice. That map was just absolutely painstakingly difficult and horrendous to play. It did not feel nice to play whatsoever. But there was technically a map that I struggled more on, and that was BO1 Verrückt, and it's probably because of the amount of fails I had later on. Because I had less fails on Verrückt than I did on Derice that were past 50, and I had way more fails earlier on before 50 on World at War Derice. But Verrückt, I ended up failing on like round 96, and then I had like 2 more fails in the 80s or something. And so that would have really racked up the time, and it ended up taking me 5 days to do BO1 Verrückt, where I'd estimated 3.5 days. So I did do worse on Verrückt, but I enjoyed it way more than World at War Derice. And then I did say that the easiest map, I think, was Forsaken, and again, it was just the combination of playing a strategy I already knew with the Cold War mechanics, and since I'd basically warmed up on the other maps beforehand, I was finally getting back into the Cold War style. And it was really, really easy to just get going and get it done. That's not to say that there were maps that weren't just as easy as it. I honestly think there were. But all in all, I do think that was probably the easiest out of all of them. So the last thing is to talk about the time it took me. So it took me 420 hours, 50 minutes, 53 seconds. And the total time I actually spent on all of the completed runs was 311 hours, 5 minutes and 17 seconds. So all in all, this meant that only about 25% of my time was spent failing the maps, which I know it sounds like quite a lot, but it's not actually that bad. Because when you consider potentially doing early game restarts because RNG screws you over, or crashes, or just fails that kind of seem to be out of your control, 110 hours of fails or so isn't completely terrible. And that also gives me my perfect runtime, which who knows, maybe I'll go back for in the future. I definitely doubt it though. But 311 hours, 5 minutes, 17 seconds would technically be a perfect, in quotation marks, run for me. I know I could play some of the maps faster. I know I could make a lot less mistakes if I did it again. But yeah, that would be the perfect time to go for. But if you guys do want to see all the information and how long each individual map took me, this is the completed run, not the including the fails. You can check out the spreadsheet that will be in the description below. But other than that, that's pretty much the end of the challenge. So I want to thank everyone who's stuck by me and watched all of these challenge videos, and including everyone on the streams. It's been incredible the amount of support you guys have shown. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and for those of you who have watched all the other videos, thank you so much for supporting me throughout this journey. It's been incredible. If you did enjoy the video, again, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, especially with Black Ops 6 coming out soon. And if you do want to see the other videos for this challenge, I will leave a link in the description below. But other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next week for the launch of Black Ops 6. Peace.